Hi everyone. Good work in week 1 and welcome to week 2. Here in this video, we're going to do a brief review on week 1. We're going to talk about week 2, the tasks you're going to be doing, go very specifically into the assignment that you have this week and a general overview. And the third thing we're going to do this week is talk about the video introduction discussion board. Our main topic for week 2 is objectives and alignments. Last week, you guys picked a topic, narrowed it down, and we also introduced the idea of aligning objectives with institutional outcomes. This week, you're going to develop 3 objectives, and that's going to be the starting point of creating your lesson plan. Every good lesson plan has a starting point. You know where you're going, you know where you're ending. Just like every good road trip. To build a great road trip, you plan from the beginning to the end and map out each step along the way. Though I have been on fun road trips where I just jumped in the car, went, didn't know where I was going, not the most efficient way to travel, and almost always I would run into stressful consequences. And trust me, if you jump into a classroom that way, which I definitely have back when I was a beginner teacher and had 8 different courses with 8 different preps, I would just jump right in, not really know where we were going, not really know where we were ending. And yeah, maybe a little learning happened within, but there were always stressful consequences. The reality of it was I really couldn't gauge if the students were learning or not, and it ended up putting so much more work on me as the instructor without good lesson plans and mapping along the way the route. So today, here, let me show you the route that we're going to take in developing your lesson plan. We already said your course objectives is your starting point. Next, we take those objectives and we align them with program outcomes, which in turn should align with our institutional outcomes. And the last step along the way is assessment. We want to make sure that our learners have actually learned the information they need to know. Did we accomplish our goals? At the end of our route, at week 7, we're also going to take feedback, reflection, and utilize that to modify the next route, the next lesson plan, and to make it even better. So when you're taking that road trip from baseball stadium to baseball stadium, at the end of the trip, when you've missed the Cubs game, you're going to go back, you're going to reflect, and you're going to modify the next trip to make sure you prioritize those Cubbies. Looking at our tasks for the week, you're going to complete your introduction YouTube video. This is due on Thursday by midnight. I get to introduce you to our textbook, No Time to Teach. You have a reading out of there, both page 189 and then 1 through 44. This text is a real simple read and incredibly practical. I'm sure even when you see the title of it, No Time to Teach, that already probably engages you, recognizing that in our field as respiratory therapists, our time is so limited, and what's an area that tends to get cut out is the teaching, the instruction of the patient. So really giving practical tips and techniques in our setting in the healthcare field. And the last task in week 2 is submitting your objectives, outcomes, and alignments assignment Sunday by midnight. Here is the overview video you are currently watching. Next, on our week 2 module, is our resources page. You'll be reading your No Time to Teach, and also you're going to be reading this PDF on course alignment. This is a concise, fairly short description of assessment and alignment, talking about course outcomes and aligning those learning points with institutional objectives. There's also a quick paragraph here regarding evaluation and modification. This will be part of our focus in week 7. Here is our week 2 assignment. Objectives, outcomes, and alignments. Again, like last week, this start assignment button is for submitting it at the end. You'll go into here, paste your URL from your Google Doc and submit. For this assignment and the remainder of your lesson plan, I want you to imagine that you are asked to prepare a class for a group of 10 students or patients or whoever that audience is that you determine as you picked your topic last week. As we set the stage here, you're given 1 hour for this particular lesson. You're also given whatever equipment you need, such as a computer, poster board, large screen, or maybe you need a ventilator or inhalers, whatever that is you might need. In our assignment in week 4, you're going to list specifically that equipment that's necessary for your 1 hour lesson. So again, here you're teaching a 1 hour lesson, not an entire course. So I want you to keep that in mind. Now, this particular lesson may be one piece of an entire course that you should keep in mind, but here we're focusing in on the one lesson and your ability to create a good lesson plan at this scale so that hopefully in the future you can broaden that to the bigger scale of maybe an entire course or several lessons. So you're not going to have 5, 6, 7, 10 objectives. I want you to limit it to 3 specific objectives for this 1 hour session. Here I have written, again, you only have 1 hour, so it's important not to get into too much depth and try to cover too much here. You can keep in mind that this would be a multi-session course. This is something I often fail at is I want to give all the content right now, and I pack in way too many objectives in one session, and that can be very counterproductive. Again, we're going to limit ourselves to 3 specific objectives here. I want you to ask yourself, what should the student, patient, be able to do by the end of this first session? That'll help you decide what exactly you're going to teach in this lesson and what objectives you want to utilize. With those objectives, you're going to also have assessments, and the assessment comes at the end of the teaching where you evaluate your student and see, okay, did they actually learn this particular objective? Here, you're going to consider how your objectives will be met and assessed. I want to draw your attention to the bottom of the page in the grading rubric. Just follow this grading rubric and you'll know what my expectations are and what you'll need to do to get full points. Also, before we go into the assignment template, take note here that there is an example, a very good example of an objectives and alignment assignment. So let's look at this template together. Here we are in my copy of the assignment. Remember, you're going to have to make your own copy of this assignment to be able to edit it. So we start by going into File, make a copy, and we give it the appropriate name. Now you have your own copy to edit. Be sure again to give me editing rights to this under this share button so that I can grade it and give you feedback. This template is in APA format. Here we have our title page. First thing to note is we have an APA header. This is going to continue on every page. The header is very simple. It is in all caps, and APA requires that it's 50 characters or less, and it should be an abbreviated form of your full title. So as an example, if your topic is instructing breathing techniques to COPD patients at altitude, the abbreviated title could be COPD patients at altitude. And you want to fill out this title page with a full title, your name, course number and name, date, and here this will be my name. Next page on the template, again, you see here's that abbreviated title that needs to go here. And let's look at the form. You'll need to include your course topic here. You're going to highlight whether this is a student or a patient. And you're going to highlight your setting. Is it in the classroom or a clinical setting? There is some additional information for you to read through here. You're going to be filling out this chart, which includes course objectives, alignment, the type of learning, the assessment tool utilized, and this last one, which will not be completed this week but will be during week 7, is the modification. Let's start in column 1 with course objectives. There's a listed example for you here that says identify the signs of an asthma exacerbation, with the verb identify italicized. Here for the course objectives, remember from last week's reading on Bloom's taxonomy, the action verbs utilized within course objectives. It's a very important part in creating your objective. So go back, if necessary, to Bloom's taxonomy and learning outcomes and find that list of verbs to help create your learning objectives. My objective was identify, which I find here in my knowledge lowest level of learning. After writing your objective, you're going to align that objective with institutional outcomes. We looked at institutional outcomes last week. If you scroll to the bottom of this page, I have listed the institutional outcomes that you will be aligning your objective with. So you're going to need to decide whether your objective falls under the category of critical thinking, communication, or professionalism. Each one of these has listed a definition and some examples. I have identified my objective as critical thinking. The next step in this assignment is to align your objective with the type of learning. Is it introductory, reinforcement, or emphasize? Let's scroll down and look at our kinds of learning. We have introductory, which is just the facts and concepts we want students to know. Here are the action verbs that go along with introductory learning. The reinforce, again, here are the verbs that go with reinforcement. And is it emphasizing? Students using their knowledge and reasoning to act skillfully. Here we're looking more at demonstrate, exhibit, display. These lists of verbs are by no means exhaustive. You can go do your own research and find many more additional verbs. We already looked at this verb, identify, under Bloom's taxonomy, which put it in that lower level of knowledge. So as we look at these categories, introductory, reinforce, or emphasize, as we go up in levels of learning, we're still in that lower level of introduction. So I have introduce here. Next, let's verify this objective was met through an assessment tool. For the assessment, an important thing to keep in mind, again, is this verb that you have utilized. You want that verb to align with the level of assessment. So here, as an example, students will list their most common signs of an exacerbation. That verb list is an introductory learning style that completes the objective of identify. Here again, as I go back to a guide to Bloom's taxonomy, and I'm looking at these verbs. In blue here are my introductory verbs, and I have used identify as my objective, and the assessment, I am utilizing the verb list. So here, my assessment and my objective line up to my level of learning as introductory. How do I know that the students have learned this objective? Well, this list is going to be copied and handed in for me to evaluate and look at to verify that they have gained this information. Also, it's important not only that I know that they've learned, but they have something to reinforce their learning, so they'll get a copy of that list as well. The final column, you're not going to be filling out this week, but you will be filling out in week 7, so be sure to save this document. And in week 7, after 6 weeks of learning, you'll have the opportunity of updating and improving your lesson plan based on your new knowledge, based on your evaluation and reflection of what you have done in the previous 6 weeks. Every good teacher needs to be humble enough to recognize there are so many areas of improvement and to always take evaluations seriously and reflect on them, make your material and your content better each and every time. This field is a field of constant learning and improving. So again, you're going to approach this week 7. Be sure you save this document. The last piece, and an important part of this assignment, is this reflection paragraph explaining your process for the assignment. I'm not looking for your knowledge on your respiratory topic. I'm looking that you're learning what we're doing here in this particular course. Tell me about your aligning process from developing your course objectives to aligning those with institutional outcomes and types of learning and assessment. What resources did you use to help you do this and help you align? I know here in this video, I referenced Bloom's taxonomy a few times, so please use those references that we've done in class and your own external resources as well. and show me your thought process and your learning through this alignment assignment. Finally, there's a section here for your references, again in APA format. Please visit this link if you're unsure how to do that. Let's go back into the course shell. I want to point out here that I say that this week, your practice writing learning outcomes. I'll give you specific feedback that you will utilize in week 4, where you're actually going to complete the full lesson plan. So here, you do not need to write a full lesson, just the objective statements, and then doing the alignment process with those objective statements. I mentioned an example here. We have the long full title, and then our abbreviated version in all caps. Our course topic, our highlighted audience and setting. And the student has developed 3 course objectives. Aligned them with the institutional outcomes, identified the type of learning for each objective, and provided an assessment tool. Each of their assessment tools specifically targets the verb that they have used in their objective, such as the second one where they are classifying, and they show exactly how in the assessment, how the learner will be classifying the difference between adverse and near miss patient events. Let's look at their paragraph. So you can see they begin with formulating their learning objective, describing the thought process, and then continue on with the alignment process of their objectives. This particular student goes on to give some more specifics regarding near-miss events, their topic. This flows great. It's a great paragraph. It's not a necessary part. The goal here, again, is to show your knowledge and what you've learned about the course alignment process. Finally, at the end of this example, our references, they are APA format specific with that hanging indent. These hanging indents are quite simple to do within a Google document. There is an instructional video in our Canvas shell. Let me show you where that is real quick, and you can review that if you need help creating these hanging indents. We're gonna head home. We're at the bottom of the page. We're looking at APA AMA help. And under the APA AMA help section, here is APA hanging indents in Google Docs. And here's a brief instructional video by Professor Brian Psycho showing how to do hanging indents in Google Docs. So looking at the big picture of the course, in week 1, you selected your topic. Here in this assignment in week 2, you're creating your course objectives, you're aligning them with institutional outcomes, types of learning, and your assessments. Coming up in week 4, you will be building out this lesson plan. You're going to be placing in your content that you will be teaching and showing how you will teach it, and going more into depth and laying out your assessments. This particular assignment in week 4 is more in depth than many of the rest, so be sure that you set aside that time to put into this assignment in week 4. Week 5, we break from the lesson plan and take a quiz. And then in week 6, you'll be putting together a Google slideshow. This is much like a PowerPoint of your lesson plan with content, with slides, adding in lecture notes. You will not be presenting this. You'll be putting it together as if you were presenting it. And then in the final week, week 7, you'll be creating a summarizing infographic. Also, we'll be evaluating and coming up with lesson modifications. And the last thing to do for the week is that YouTube video introduction. Hopefully you have already got your head start on that since we introduced it last week. Just a reminder, this is due Thursday of this week. If you're unsure how to make a YouTube video, here's an instructional video by Professor Brian Psycho on that. And this page has all the information and criteria you'll need to create that introductory video. If you happen to have any questions regarding this week, remember there's a couple ways to go about that. You can place them in the study hall. This will be a spot that everyone in the class can see your questions, so if it's helpful and pertinent to everyone, please do this. Keep an eye out here. It's ideal for you to subscribe to this page and keep your eye on it for those questions that other classmates have that might help you out. Also, you can email me personally here at julieabood@boisestate.edu. Thank you for joining me for the Week 2 overview. Again, connect with me via email if you have any questions.